had a buddy of mine that's a pretty hardcore bodybuilder. He's like, Vinny, if you just did one thing to train, just do one side, your natural size and strength. Imagine. I just love to see how it reacts in your body. I'm like, what if it makes my voice sound like your voice and I can't sing? then I'd be like, Tyler, well, I was out there, but he sounds good like that. I would not sound good like that.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? I'm Big Vinny. This is the Refined Live Podcast. Right over here, we got our buddy, Jared Blake. Over here, we got Jeff Suter. And right here, we got our one and only buddy, Noah Curtis. He's going to be our special guest for the day. You're going to love him. You know why? Because he put his hat backwards just so you could see his eyes on this episode.
Well, just for y'all.
Bam, look at those. Look at those things. They're like Mickey Blues with a little bit of green mixed in, a couple little dots in there, boy. Nice eyes. Look at them. Can you see them? Look in that camera.
Let me make sure.
Give them. Oh, bat them. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice. So one of the reasons, we had been talking for a little bit about getting you on here, and I had told them a little bit about you. One of the things I love about you is your story, and I want you to be able to tell that part of your story and tell people where you came from, what you're doing now. But the reason I wanted you for this episode is because this episode is about people that judge you by the things you messed up or did in your past.
Whew.
And I think that judgment is there a lot of times, and they're like, well, you don't want them around. You know what they did 10 years ago. And I think one of the biggest things I always say is if you're judging me by who you knew 2 years ago, you're judging me
the wrong guy. Yeah.
Because I'm not the same as I was. I'm ever evolving. I'm always growing. I'm always changing. I'm always learning a lesson and trying to be that. So I think for you, where you're sitting at right now, I think you still battle maybe some of that. I don't know how long you've been out of that life, but I want you to tell your story a little bit. Talk about where you've come from and the battles you have had to deal with that, especially in smaller towns and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how much you do or don't know, but I tell you this.
Minimal.
So, minimal?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, I got addicted to OxyContin at 13 years old.
Yeah.
And that's all I did, all I touched. But it created this identity of Noah that was just, I can't even believe it nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I look back and think, how? Because my brain is so different. So I've been out of it since 2015. I've had ups and downs of bad decisions and still the addict lifestyle after OxyContin, if that makes any sense. Like some of the same stupid decisions I would still make sober. So that's why some people never thought that I got out of it. But basically, true story, a man named Richie Garber preached the gospel to me, and I had this overwhelming feeling that that's what I needed to do, and I broke down, and he asked me to repeat a prayer, pretty popular in America. But when I did that, I'll never forget it. I've never felt that experience ever again, but it lasted for a whole month, and here's what happened. When I said that, I was completely free. I would look at people that I used to think were pretty ugly and unattractive, and I seen them as beautiful. So every person that passed me, I didn't want to make fun of people anymore. Or I didn't want to be mean, or here's the craziest part. I had a girl that just randomly bumped into me one day, and she was trying to pay me a lot of money to come sleep with her. And I knew that I was different because it wasn't even a thought. I said no, and I started witnessing to her, and right then and there, she broke down crying. And she left, and she said her life was changed that day. I don't know. It could have been fake, but everything for that month was different. And it completely set me free. I never used drugs again. Now, I got pretty close, still sometimes do the Broadway scene, go drink alcohol with my friends and stuff. But it changed my life. It changed the way I think. And as far as the small town part, there's people who still see that Noah still to this day. Like I can bump into them and not say a word, and they just give you that look. Or, you go for a job or doing business with somebody, and everything's good until you show up. That does still happen.
Well, and for me, the reason that even came about, the real reason I even know, because I didn't really know you before. We were doing this concert, and you would hit me up about, hey, I'm helping with the marketing of quality building supply and all this other stuff. And I hit up Moon. I'm like, do you know who this guy is? I was like, I want to make sure before I start giving him, materials and all this. He goes, oh, man. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I guess you're Bill Bates' stepson?
Yeah, Bill Bates is my stepfather.
So Bill Bates is his stepdad, which I love Bill. He's been there for me on everything from my first car to my first business to everything. Like, I've always borrowed my money from Bank of Perry County. And he's always been behind me. And even when I got behind, he said, hey, man, I'm going to give you another month. I'll wipe off this or wipe off that. Don't have to worry about late fees. He's always taking care of me.
He's solid, man.
Good person. And he said, man, he goes, he's got a good story, man. He's like, he was on this and that. And, he didn't know what all it was, but he's like, man, he's really turned his life around. And he was bragging about you, about all the things that you had done and how you had turned this. And of course, I guess Bill had talked to him and told him, he was proud of you and all these other things. So to me, when Moon says something about somebody, I take it as the gospel truth. You know what I mean? There's no part of me that's like, if Moon tells me something, I believe it. If he says, hey, don't mess with that person, he's
going to shoot you straight no matter what it is.
And I know. And so when he told me that, I was like, man, I'm really intrigued by this. I went and checked you out, started following you, seeing some of your posts, seeing some of your stuff. And I was like, man, I want to get to know this guy better. Well, obviously we talked multiple times in between all that with promoting that concert and stuff. But I know just because of, my family and the history I had, my mom and my stepdad got busted with 7,000 plants of marijuana when I was in 7th grade.
God.
And even though my dad was a preacher in town, my mom was now the drug dealer and my stepdad. And I literally would have parents of other kids say, you don't want to hang out with him. That's the drug dealer's kid. And I became that. I was like, wait a second, my dad's a preacher.
Why not also the preacher's
kid? Yeah, am I not also the preacher? Which that
may be both?
Maybe that was the thing. He's like, he's a preacher's kid and he's the drug kid.
Makes sense.
He's the preacher. He's the preacher drug kid.
He's the preacher drug kid. He was going to preach drugs to our kids. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I know what that can be like. And the cool thing about it is because of my perseverance and because I've just continued to prove like, hey, man, I'm a good dude. Just because my parents did something doesn't mean I did something. Just because I might have used to done something doesn't mean I do it now. And so, I think that's a cool that you've been able to overcome those things. So what is, you've overcome this. You had this amazing feeling, which is the Holy Ghost is all I can explain it as.
Yeah, that's why I tell people.
Holy Ghost comes on to you. Changes the way you look at people, kind of like that. I think about Shallow Hal, the way you said it. Like all of a sudden, people were beautiful to me that I would have never given a time of day. You had a change of heart. I mean, there's probably people along the way that you did be mean to, or you did say things to that.
I'm sure
that probably hurt them, and they probably still have that negative connotation of you. And hopefully, one of these days, they'll talk with you about it, and you'll be able to rectify those type of things.
Yeah, I hope so.
If not, maybe one of them will see this episode or hear this episode, and it makes them realize, like, man, that's a different dude than what I thought. Because there's no doubt that there's still somebody out there saying, Noah, man, bad apple,
For sure.
And so what is your day-to-day walk now? What are the things that you face? And I want to let Jared talk because I know he's facing the same stuff too. Yeah. But what are the things now that you focus on a daily? What's your daily grind, your work, your purpose?
Just my life?
Yeah.
Just everything?
Well, just what drives you? What is your goals? What are you aimed towards? Like you talked about this company you're trying to, to put out there and develop. And
so I got really good at social media out of nowhere, and it, I started blowing up on TikTok and other things. And a lot of people don't know this, but I deleted it. I started making a lot of money, and I deleted it because I got convicted. Because a lot of the stuff I was doing was just feet pictures.
I knew it.
Still got
back up again.
I'm just kidding, but man, it's just like still to this day I kind of do battle that, going back and forth with the world and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, but not for people, for my peace, for like what God thinks is okay.
Yeah.
So I started redoing all that. And I guess one of my goals is I have a clothing company I think I'm going to start that's going to kind of be fashionable and for the outdoors. I'm going to push that. But then I actually have a goal now. It's always been a passion of mine, and you're going to think this is extremely hilarious probably when I tell you this. I used to love rapping. I used to love it. And most people said I was good at it. But I really like country music. And so I want to try and become a writer of both. Yeah. I really want to try to write music for people. My daily grind as far as God, I tell people this all the time. If you're not reading the Bible, then, something's got to give. Mm-hmm. And so I just try to read something every day because it is, Jesus said, you don't live on bread alone, but every word that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible is inspired by God, so everything that he said is what's wrote. Mm-hmm. So I just tell people, there's times that I do forget to pray. There's times I spend, weekends away from church. But I try every single day to read Scripture, whether it's one sentence or 50, because I believe it'll always keep you going. Because he's to me, he's a lifeline. I think that's why Jesus said, stay, the vine, the branches on the tree. If you break yourself off, it's over. Yep. If you get out from underneath the umbrella, you're going to get wet. So I believe staying connected is always reading his word because it's literally him talking and you're repeating the power that he has. But,
with that, and how do you gain wisdom if you don't seek it?
Amen.
Right?
Yeah,
and where's the wisdom come from? Mm-hmm. From the word. So if we're not seeking the word, we're truly not gaining wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So, well, that's cool. So clothing brand, working on your musical side that you're wanting to go for.
Yeah.
What was your business on the internet that was making you the money? Was it just being an influencer, or was it?
So, yeah, most of it was being an influencer, and I wasn't super open about it because I was still kind of skeptical on something that I was taught, and it's giveaway campaigns.
Yeah.
And you charge for them. And basically, it's just you're making money off celebrities helping other people or helping you to help other people grow their profiles. But a lot of people do it. And
I guess I understand what that means.
Okay, so for instance, we'll just use Money Mayweather, right?
Yeah.
Money Mayweather had a post one time that said, giveaway, you can win 15 Xboxes or you can win 10 iPhones. To enter, like this post and follow all these people.
Yeah.
So all these organic, real people start following that.
So they paid the money for stuff, the people that wanted the follows?
So people will pay money to be tagged on that.
Okay.
So that all those people that see that to enter go follow. And so it's celebrities helping other people, basically is what it is. So,
I mean, it doesn't seem like a bad thing. It seems like a way of marketing yourself. You're going to spend a little money to market your business.
I mean, hey, now I believe in it, and I still do it. I've got one coming up October 12th. It's going to be just some random people who have 1 million followers. They're going to do a giveaway and say, go follow these people. You'll probably get 20 to 30,000 followers, 80% retention rate, and then people will see it, and they'll stick around. They'll engage. Engagement is important for social media. It drives everything.
Yeah.
And then
what does it cost the person that wants to be tagged? Like, what's the typical cost?
It really depends on the person because
I mean, you got Floyd Mayweather.
you got Floyd Mayweather. It may cost a little more for him to do stuff on your story, right? For it to be worth his time.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the average is $300 to $500 for 20 to 50,000 followers. But they're real though. See, a lot of people try to scam you with bots. They'll give you no profile.
It just happened to me yesterday.
Well, they'll even follow you. You'll get like 10,000 followers from some random person, and then a DM from outside in a different country.
This guy right here,
dude. So many of the bots though are getting
Do you know
good.
this guy, Pato Viral?
Yeah, they are. Wait, who?
Pato Viral.
I don't think so.
I don't know. This guy hit me up the other day. He's got seemed like a nice guy. 2.5 million followers. He hit me up. He's got a YouTube award and some other stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, these are the people that I collaborate with. And it's like Yak Cabrera, Kevin Macri, Julio Pitbull, Wanda Nara. I mean, I didn't know who any was involved. Some of these have like 20, 30 million followers.
Yeah.
And he's like, we want to do a campaign with you. Love your stuff. Love what you're posting, all this other stuff. And then he sends me this, and he goes, can I share something with you? I said, sure, share away. And then it said campaigns like $10K, $250. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. He goes, well, you'll get 10,000 people if you do $250. And I'm like, I mean, I don't want a bunch of bots and a bunch of crap follow me. And he's like, no, these are organic. These are real. And he starts trying to show me examples. I'm like, I'm not interested. Because I'm like, I don't even know what this is. And you hit me up out of the blue and liked like 85 of my comments.
People try to do that all the time, man.
And I didn't even know what it was. I'm like,
well, most of the time they'll just go ahead and follow you and then DM you, and they'll say, look, you just grew a bunch of following.
Yeah, there's a guy.
If you want some more, let's do it.
I've been noticing. And I think I just got over 10,000 followers per. And those are followers that have come through years and years of just posting and being whatever, and of course, being on shows and stuff. But
sure.
I got these 10,000 followers, and ever since then, like I've noticed, like there's all these people that come and comment because I got my blue check mark, and these people come and comment like, "Oh, this is fire, this is this," and I like, I'll go check them. They're like 2-3 million followers, and I'm like, why is this guy on my page? How did he even find my page? But I guess they get alerted maybe when somebody hits a certain level, or they I don't know how that works.
Yeah, pretty much on social media you'll get both. You'll get people that you know that are popular, or people that just randomly come across your post. I've had people like Sherry Nicole, if you know who that is, like Addison Rae's mom. She's a.
I don't know who that is either.
Well, she's like one of the most famous TikTok, Instagram models.
Okay.
Her mom was dating Young Gravy. But
I don't know who that is either. But I love gravy.
Okay, well, some of these people are really popular, and they just come across your stuff, and they'll engage or they'll interact just because they're big social media people. But then you'll get other profiles like you're saying that'll do it too. So usually it's 50-50.
Okay,
that's what I've seen. 50% real, 50% fake most of the time.
Yeah. I was just wondering, because I'm like, why are these people all of a sudden commenting on my stuff? I never heard of these people in my life, Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So, I don't want to get too far off track, because that's a whole nother episode that's interesting in my book.
I want to go back to, you said the conviction got you out of social media for a while. What was that?
So I read in the Bible where it talks about protecting your peace. And I had a pastor one time, I'll make this story super short. He told me a story about how he was fishing with a guy, and they got around this bend, and then there was another one coming up, another curve, another bend in the creek. And every time he took a step forward, God was like taking peace from him. He kept feeling more uncomfortable. And his buddy kind of talked him out. It was like, nah, it's kind of crazy. He's like, and man, don't try to be super spiritual. He was like, maybe you're right. Well, they walked around, and there was like 100 people having an orgy doing drugs. And he was like, wow, I never forgot that. And then he told me that scripture. And so long story short is, I guess I started putting out some content that was taking away my peace.
Yeah.
And then...
Now, what river was this on?
Yeah. Hang on, let me get the address. No, I'm kidding. Still go there. No. But I don't know. I just had that feeling. I just had that connection that felt like it was dwindling. And that's something I've never got past. Till this day, I always run it through that channel. And there's some things, well, honestly, I don't know if I've ever said this, but there's a lot of things that hit me that way.
Mm.
Yeah.
But that's how, basically.
The reason I ask, and we just had, this conversation about social media not long ago. And right out of the gate, I'm like, I hate social media. And a lot of it, that's the same way for me. There's something about it that takes away my peace, my joy, my happiness. It brings in a bunch of negative things for me that, and I'm curious now thinking about it because I brought it up then about, I wonder how much me being an addict has to do with this, because you don't seem to struggle with it, but I struggle with self-worth. And so I can get either too caught up in the praise and believe in my own crap, or I get beat down, or then judging, how come this guy's getting this reaction and I'm not getting it? Like, Vinny can have a post reach 4 people or 400,000 or 4 million, and he acts the same way to any of them. Nothing changes in his brain. My brain, though, is like, at 4, you're like, why did I even do this? Why, like, you're like, almost
I
like
agree.
almost like
way.
a depression, suicidal sort of thing. Like, I'm worth nothing. And so I've pulled away from it tremendously because I look at it and I understand what it can be, but there's some sort of pain in it for me that I can't, and I can only put it on like that addiction side. Like there was a reason that I was an addict. There was a reason that I drank too much. There was a reason I did all those things. And it seems to be directly tied to my self-worth, and social media is a playground for that.
Well, I always believe that it's tied directly with identity, which is exactly that self-worth battle, because I think the biggest thing that the enemy wants to steal from people is their identity. And everybody has to identify with something, or they don't feel like they are something.
Absolutely. And you hit on part of it earlier, because like when you said, started doing Oxy at 13 and that identity. Well, I mean, my identity very early on was the excessive amount that I could drink. And then it became all the cocaine and all the other things, and how I knew where the party was, and you just became that guy. When you're young doing that, it's also really easy to let yourself believe all the hype about you. And, at that age too, when especially your young 20s, girls aren't concerned about what you're going to do with your life. They think you're cool. Like it's just, life seems easy,
Yeah, for sure.
and letting go of that identity, dude, just the hardest thing I've ever done. Just letting go of that. And you continue to search for this new identity, and so Vinny and I speak in schools a lot, and one of the ones that I've come across here lately is I was in the school, and of course we have a lot of transgender, all these different discussions that we're having that we never had before, of what a boy is, what a girl is, that you've got to either identify with a Republican or a Democrat or a liberal or conservative. Like everything's just over here.
Yeah.
And it's this identity that my children and what I watch with our youth face like no other generation has. And I look and question that all the time, like, how much does social media have to do with that, first of all? But then there was, at this particular school, I said on stage, you weren't with me on this one, I don't think. Was that a transgender girl to the left? I don't think you were with me on that.
I don't think so, but I've heard the story.
Yeah, so I started in on this, was like, you guys, what I feel the worst for you is that you're so struggling for this identity, and you're trying to find it in this world. And the problem is that we are all searching for something, but we're getting lost in what happens in this world because we don't know anything other than what we see. And so, think about it, the fact that, like, you're a human being. You're more than black. You're more than white. You're more than gay. You're more than straight. You're more than Christian. You're more than Muslim. You're more than a boy. You're more than a girl. Like, we take this word and then we identify with it, and it enslaves us.
Yeah.
That is now what we are.
That's good.
And I said in a school, and I couldn't believe I got away with it. I said, the only phrase I've ever found that doesn't enslave me is child of God.
Wow.
Because it's the creator of everything. I am part of everything. I can find my identity in part of
you don't have to
everything.
dress a certain way to fit into being a child of God.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Absolutely.
speak a certain way. You don't have to
Absolutely.
Come just as you are.
Come on. That's
Absolutely.
good.
This is just where I am. And, so I think that when I look at, I'm sure you probably agree with this, that when I look at the drugs, all the alcohol, all the bad decisions, it was always me trying to find myself, because there's a Switchfoot song. We were made for so much more, but we lost ourselves.
Yeah.
The whole song is talking about we were made to find God, and we lose ourselves in this world because it's all we see and all we know. And you talk about oxy, cocaine, those sort of things. Those are great things to lose yourself in, man.
Yeah.
They will take you to the peak of what you can feel on this earth.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
just swimming around and like, oh, I feel great.
Yeah.
You know,
I used to tell people all the time, I could have been homeless on the street with nothing, but if I had that inside of my body, it felt like Christmas morning in a warm blanket with a puppy next to me. Everything was fine, but it's insanity. You know?
You're making a pretty heavy pitch for.
I mean, I would tell people.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. It is great,
And puppy.
but I don't think
Christmas
we were
morning.
created to feel great all the time.
Well,
Yeah,
and that's what
absolutely.
I tell these kids in schools, that like, listen, you do. Everybody tells you these bad stories are like, well, if you do drugs, these bad things are going to happen. Well, truthfully, the bad things didn't happen right away.
Yeah.
Okay, it took a minute for me.
Mm-hmm.
You may have seen them a lot quicker because you started at 13, so that probably progressed a little differently for you. But
sure.
I mean, so mine took about 10 years before really things got completely out of whack. And I'll tell these kids, like, they talk about how bad it is. And when you've been trained that this is going to be bad, and then you do cocaine for the first time, and it was the greatest freaking night of your life, and nothing bad happened, and you got away with it. And then you sign on a publishing deal in Nashville where their entire thing is to help you get away with it. And everything about your life is set up to get away with it. The road that you travel down is a completely different road, and you feel completely invincible. If I had cocaine in my body, I was completely invincible no matter how bad life was at that time. I could not see it. I couldn't feel it. And it was so good that you're willing to give up your entire life for it. You'll give up your children. You'll give up your wife. You'll give up your career. You'll give up. That's the problem, is that drugs aren't bad. They're that amazing that you will give up every dream and every aspiration you ever had just for that next high.
Well, I tell people all the time, drugs wasn't my problem. It was my solution.
Right.
It's just,
Absolutely.
It's just a terrible solution.
And you find that out even more so after you get clean.
Right.
Because like you said, then you're like, I'm still doing the same stupid crap I was before, except I don't have a good excuse anymore. Used to, you could be like, I'm sorry, I was really drunk. That'll never happen again.
Yeah.
And now you're like, what comedian is it? Talks it. John Mulaney's like, the truth is like, I'm just an asshole that will probably happen again. Like,
Right.
That's what I have to say now, you know? And it's, but I'm glad that you're standing up and speaking about it and telling people, because, we've got this stigma on that particular thing. And, like, it's not cool, or you're so much cooler if you're doing it. We all went through that phase of our life. And some people are able to grow from that and control things, and others aren't. Yeah. I mean, I watched so many of the people that they were doing this in college, and then they graduated college and they got the real job, and they came back to the bar, and I was still there, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you do? You guys want to party?" And they didn't party anymore.
Yeah.
They graduated college, got jobs, and moved on with life. You know,
You're like Uncle Rico, only of the bar scene.
I think
Yeah.
you mentioned when that guy prayed over
Oof.
you, and he asked you to repeat the prayer, which, like you said, is a pretty common thing in the church today. You said for the next month you felt a certain way, right? Where you didn't see everybody was beautiful. You were kind of on a God high, not an OxyContin high, but a God high, right?
For sure.
But it
I think
only
that's called
lasted
the
a
pink
month.
cloud.
I think you're still experiencing it, just in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess
Because-
after a month, you probably get more used to the feeling of it. It's not
Yeah.
as new.
And all the ugly people come back. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say it.
No, I
I
think
just happen to notice this one over here might not be that.
I
As
just
pretty
think
as I thought.
Sitting here with you, I can tell God lives within you.
Yeah.
And
Appreciate
that
it.
you
Yeah.
have that faith, and that you're going to continue to be a testimony to what Jesus Christ did for you. So I think you're still on that high, just
Yeah.
based off the 15, 20,
Yeah.
30 minutes we've been
Yeah,
sitting
Sure.
here.
I mean, you brought a presence to the room
Yeah.
immediately, and I'm so glad that you came on today, because I know the three of us talk about it all the time. We need more brothers like that. We need more people
I appreciate
that are fighting against things from a loving standpoint.
Yeah.
No fists.
Yeah. But also being vulnerable enough to let down the guard and say, hey, I struggled with this. Because a lot of times us as men, especially masculine men, like all of us in this room are, we're men that want to be in control and we want to have everything figured out. We want to solve all the problems for everybody. Being, truly masculine is also being willing to say, hey, I screwed up here. I fell short, of the bar here. And I'm willing to talk to you about it because I want to make sure that I'm protecting you as a masculine man would do to keep you from making these mistakes. I want you to know like there's a better way to live. And I think our only job on this earth, I think there's a lot of things we do to make money. There's a lot of things that we do to create purpose and things like that. But our real true purpose here is to bring more people to Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Is to get people to spread the word of God. And that's what our true jobs are as Christians here, is to let people know, not in a way that's judgy, not in a way that's condemning them to hell or anything. Like we all grew up kind of in the South getting told, boy, you're going to go to hell and suffer for, but it's to let them know like, hey, God loved you so much.
That's right.
Like I got kids now, I got a son, I got a daughter, and I would not send my kid to die for anybody. And I love these dudes. I'm starting to love you more and more. I love you automatically, but getting to know you better.
Yeah.
But these dudes are two of my best friends in the world. And if they say, hey, Vinny, you got to
sacrifice your child.
Sacrifice your child for me. I'm like, nah, bro, you don't have to go die. That's the way it's going to be.
See you when I get there.
What do you want for your last
But I'm
name?
going to be burning for eternity. That's too bad, man. I'm sorry about
if
that.
it was every friend that I've ever had in my history of my life, and they said, dude, if you just sacrifice your son, that you'll, and you'll just go put him on a cross and brutally beat him and all these things, then all these other people can be saved from him. I'm like, nah, sorry, you're going to have to go burn in hell. I don't know what to tell you,
Yeah.
And so it's like the fact that he loved us so much in order to watch his son go through that, in order to, to come here. Of course, I know there's the people that believe the Trinity or oneness or this or that, everybody believes different ways, but, whether it was God taking form of a human and going through the suffering for us or, so that we could be forgiven, or if it was, his actual son, this, that, however people look at it in different ways, the fact that to take away from that godly form, to come into human form and endure that kind of pain and go through that, to make up a whole new word, crucifixion, a whole new word in order to say what he went through.
It's like whichever way you spin it, it's still the King of Kings.
Yeah.
Throwing it all away to experience the worst of the worst.
Yep.
Yeah.
For somebody who broke all the rules, all the laws.
Yeah.
And he never did. He never did no wrong.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
And he's up there beside people that, obviously one of them turned his eyes away from him, and the other one, realized that he really was the Son of God. And he said, today you'll be in paradise,
That's right.
And this guy's up there, he was a thief, and he's hanging on the cross beside Jesus for things that he did. And I don't know the extent of what his sins were, I'm sure there's somewhere that some Bible scholars that know.
Hey, probably many.
What,
right?
Yeah, a lot of them. But, that day was supposed to be Barabbas he was like a cruel human being. Like he was mean to people. He killed, he stole, he done all these things. And the people there chose for Jesus to go be on that cross, which was because what was planned by God. Obviously there's a plan, but they would rather see this guy go that's probably going to rape and murder and hurt somebody in their family than this guy who's just been out there performing miracles because they had been convinced that this was the wrong guy.
Yeah.
That this guy wasn't the Son of God.
Right.
So it's kind of like the media today. They convince us all kinds of stuff that ain't real.
You hit on something else too, that most people who get clean, it's more of a route of AA, NA, CA, rehab, those sort of things, which there is a presence of God that they talk about, but it's a little bit of a fuzzier God. It's whatever God you're choosing, opposed to the route that you went.
He's like,
and that was my biggest struggle getting clean, is that a lot of the programs took you away from the Jesus aspect of things. And what I watched with people on a whole that didn't have Christ was that whenever they went back out, there was a lot less likely chance they were going to come back in. And what I watched with my Christian friends is that Jesus stayed with you.
Yeah.
And it was almost harder. And I haven't talked to you about this. Vinny knows all about it. Like, so recently, so I spent 11 years completely clean of anything. And then 5 years ago, I started drinking again. And the whole time that I was doing it, there was still that conviction. And especially in the beginning, there was nothing I was doing wrong. And I kept looking around at everybody else and going, I'm just doing it the same way. It's not a big deal. It's not
I
a big
remember
deal.
the first night We were in Vegas the first night you ever come up to me. And you said, listen, you're going to see me do something I know that you're going to think, but I'm just doing it because I'm sealing a deal over here with this guy from Texas.
And in the beginning, that is
Yeah.
how things started off. It
And-
was very innocent. It was like, this is just how I'm working this
And I
deal
looked at
or
him and I said,
whatever.
are you sure? I was like, I'm going to say, are you okay? He said, no, I got this.
And so
then a
it
little bit
was
turned into
very,
that.
it wasn't very often in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it got a little more often. And then you get to where like you're just doing it on a regular basis the way everybody else is doing. You're looking at everybody else, and then you're taking it a little further, but everyone else that you're around is also taking it a little bit further as well. And
But you were also
it
succeeding
was
in all these other things.
right. So you're like, well, I've got this under control. But that feeling of, hey, why are you doing this? Never left.
That's good.
And the month ago, we're playing the show, and I missed about half the songs that was performed that night. I messed up at some point during it, and it
Well, he
just
used to
kind
play
of
in the show with me, but I actually ended up opening for him that night. And he had
Yeah.
about 45 minutes to an hour
Yeah.
of just drinking while I was on stage.
Gotcha.
and that had never happened before, and it just hit me in that moment or the next day. It was like, why am I doing this? Why would I put something that I know for a fact has been a stumbling block in my life back into my life? And so this was a completely different opportunity. Before, I was on rock bottom when you stopped. And now it was like, this really isn't changing my life much, but why would I mess with it? What am I teaching my children? Where am I going with this?
Yeah.
And that was the most interesting thing I thought, and it was just that Jesus never left that conviction with me, and was still there. And putting it down this time was so much easier than it was the first go around. But you're doing it for a total different reason. And a lot of that, and what I'm seeing in you, is a lot of that was that over the last 2 years, I felt like God kept going, hey, I want you to be the leader that I chose you to be. I want you to be the leader that I chose you to be. And in the back of my head, I was like, I got this, and this. I don't really want to be a leader because then people are going to be watching me, and then I got to change these things. And finally, it was that dawning of like, if I'm not completely happy with my life and where I'm going, very possible that I can't go where God knows that I'm going to feel the best.
That's good.
What do they talk about? The knowing the desires of your heart. God knowing the desires of your heart better than you. And maybe I'm putting these little roadblocks in that's keeping God from giving the desires of my heart to me.